So Mitch Silver, the APA president, invited me to serve as an advisor on social media. And so I created an intensive 3-week workshop, and 16 students from Ohio State University spent the last several weeks engaging and learning how to pin, post, and push to promote planning. So we started out by engaging a wide array of thought leaders in planning technology, starting with Ben Berkowitz, the creator of SeeClickFix, who taught us about how he's using crowdsourcing to solve community problems, such as one woman who complained about the heart-thumping techno music coming from a hot dog vendor. Now, Jimmy, the hot dog vendor, is an institution in Hartford, Connecticut. And so the community rallied behind him and said, "Jimmy's awesome. I especially love it when he dances to his techno music." Well, word got around to Jimmy. Jimmy's friends set him up with an account, and Jimmy went online and said, "I'll turn the music down." Issue closed, and another success for SeeClickFix. Now, we talked to Matthew Zook, a planner at the University of Kentucky, who taught us about how to analyze created data from users on social media. Now, we looked through the APA program and saw lots of sessions on aging, but we didn't see anything on the zombie apocalypse. And Matt says, "We've been worried that the older and slightly disheveled population has been put at greater risk of personal injury due to their being confused for the undead." To solve this, he took tweets from across North America and looked at the ratio of tweets about zombies versus seniors. And with this data, we now understand how we can protect our vulnerable population. We interacted with Chris Stein, CEO of Urban Insight and co-editor of Planetizen, who talked to us about the importance of video. This is a video created by Casey Neistat, advocating for bicycle lanes and pointing out through a series of crashes what happens when there are obstructions in the bike lanes. So this is a perfect example of planning advocacy at its best. So next, we wanted to hear from you. Our students invited you via Twitter, LinkedIn, and on Facebook to participate in a survey and tell us what you want APA to do in terms of social media. 150 professional planners and more than 450 students responded from all over North America, and you had some great ideas. You told us you want to engage on Twitter and LinkedIn, and for students, they want to engage through Facebook as well. You told us you expect social media to be engaging, interactive, and most of all, fun. So we took a look at how APA is currently using social media. And what we found is that we're, in fact, highly engaged. 13,000 of us are members of APA's LinkedIn group. We retweet APA's Twitter feed. We connect and like things on APA's Facebook page, and we watch APA's YouTube videos. But what we looked around and saw was that we are missing out on the fun. And when we looked at other associations, what we found is while we're busy debating whether or not AICP status should be granted to tenured faculty members, the Congress for the New Urbanism was debating cow flatulence. So, perhaps it's time that we take a step back and from time to time have some fun and poke a little fun along the way. So once we looked around, we said, okay, let's try this out ourselves. Let's experiment. So we used the APA Great Places in America program. We selected this one because it really highlights the successes of planning and to a very public audience. So using a wide array of social media tools, we engaged and posted a series of things to see if we could attract attention. So for example, we posted a board on the Gold Coast and Hamburg Historic District. In a week, we had 146 followers, and a number of our images were repinned to other boards, allowing us to connect with a wider audience. We also used Yelp, posting a series of informative reviews. We wanted to highlight the success of the designation as a great place, as well as fun things to do in that community. So, for example, highlighting the Hattiesburg Train Depot in the Hattiesburg, Mississippi Historic District. And while we found that our reviews were informative, they lacked a certain sense of creativity and humor that we found elsewhere on the internet, such as Lauren C.'s quote, who says, "I've been to Motel 6 more than any of my math classes in high school. It's about $60, and I figure that $60 is only $10 a person when you have 5 friends with you. Someone will sleep in the bathtub. It's part of the charm. It's cheap and clean, like everything you'd want from a hooker." So after learning from experts, learning from you, looking at the way that social media is being used, we decided we were ready to come up with some recommendations. So first up, we thought that Mitch Silver, the president of APA, should have his own blog where he can tell us his thoughts about the future direction of planning and sharing with us his own musings. And so we're working with him on that. You may have noticed APA redesigned the front page of its website, and now you can connect via social media. And a number of you may have downloaded APA's new app. We think that they should create a mobile version of the website that would allow you to easily navigate all the great planning content anytime, any place. We also think that APA could engage more with young professionals and students. For example, creating humorous videos teaching new planners key skills such as networking, and creating a new Faces of Planning series that would highlight the successes of our planners under 30. Now, we also think that we can be more engaging when we communicate. For example, instead of saying, oh, I like biking to work every day, we could say, I'll admit the appeal of cycling is wearing nothing but multicolored underwear in public like some sort of superhero. And, you know, there are those of us who look at the latest memes when they come up on the internet, and why shouldn't we have them? One survey respondent told us that APA should have more cats. So we passed out a little survey, and you're going to help us name the cat that's on your survey sheet. So we created a whole series of these and posted them to our blog. And when you get asked, what do you do for a living, and you say city planning, some of you probably get the response back, oh, like, I used to play SimCity when I was younger, or you're like Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec, right? So we can use memes and other forms of social media to interact with the public and share our passion and for why we love planning and why it's so much fun. So the full student report is located on our blog, and I'll be tweeting that out in a few minutes, so I'd just like to thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to invite our speakers to come up and join us on the panel, and we are welcome to take questions from any of you, so you can go ahead and head up to the microphone here we have towards the front of the room, and we'd be happy to talk with you about any of the speakers' topics.
Good morning, Margot. It's Winston. I have two questions, one for Tyson's Corner and one for Margot. For Tyson's Corner, were there any urban design guidelines incorporated as well? And for Margot, tell me about how you got funding for food.
Well, we started in our comprehensive plan with very general design guidelines on height and step backs and build to lines and those sorts of things. And then actually within the last few months, we have done more detailed urban design guidelines. And the idea for that is not to be prescriptive or not to be something that we necessarily evaluate applications against, but it's more a tool that architects and other designers can use to sort of look and see the type of urban forms that we're looking for. And it covers more than design. It also covers parks and LID techniques and streetscape areas. It really covers the whole public realm.
I'm so glad you asked the question about food. When we kicked off our visioning and did reality check, we actually did a kind of classy event, and we fundraised quite a bit of money in order to do it. But that was probably because we started in 2008. We had some ability to fundraise. After that, we did our event in May 2009. Fundraising was done. But I believe that you always have to do something at a public meeting. So quite literally, we used candy left over from Halloween and Christmas candy, hard candy. We have pitchers that we filled up with ice water, and we got generic soda. We sometimes did cookies. We got them at Walmart, but we take them out of the box and put them in nice kind of containers. We used a tablecloth. But that's how we did food. We really didn't. We did something, but we didn't spend a lot of money on it.
Actually, I can add something about the food as well. A little hint that I've learned over the years is often you can't provide food with public money, but in situations where I have a consultant working on a public meeting, I put in the contract a little clause that says, and provide anything necessary for a purposeful, adequate public meeting. And I let it be known verbally, what I mean is bring food.
Morning. Also, with respect to the Tyson's Corners project, you talked about a grid network that you were going to be putting in. What tools did you use to encourage/require that moving forward?
Well, the way that our comprehensive plan and development process is set up is probably similar to many processes that you've been involved in, where we come in with the comprehensive plan. We don't actually rezone anything at that time. We don't hand out any entitlements with the comprehensive plan. People have to come back. Landowners will come back and apply for rezonings, and so those are all those projects that I showed. For the most part, all of those are in the pipeline right now, and we're reviewing them, and hopefully we'll start approving some of them soon. So that's really the incentive, is the increased density to take a landowner who has maybe 10, 15, 20 acres, come in for rezoning. It'll be built out over decades. But at the time they come in for the rezoning, we'll look at the street grid, we'll look at adjacent areas, we'll talk with the adjacent landowners and sort of come up with a grid network that works for a district. And actually we're in the process right now of big large district-wide transportation analyses that will look, and our grids are performing very well. With all of the increased density, of course, and even with Metro, we'll expect that there'll be much more traffic congestion, but the grid is going to be critical.
Hello, I didn't really have a question, but your mentioning of the app makes me have a comment. My son downloaded that for me a couple nights ago, and I've been using it to track on the little icon out here. But what would have really been helpful is, instead of that just being a tracking tool, if it actually log those credits towards my AICP, because
You can. You can. So when
but I mean, if it automatically did it rather than having to do it, because I mean, I have a yellow marker that tracked the thing, so.
Yeah, so if you go into your app and you select this session, then it will pull up, and at the very top right corner, it will say log to CM. You press the little button and you can log it. I'll show you how. Yeah, I'll show you how after the session.
Thanks.
Morning. Regarding community participation, how do you get rid of the usual gadflies, the usual suspects who drown out the people you want and you think are the actual constituents of some either specific plan or some policy you're trying to implement, to try and avoid people drowning out the people you want to reach?
I'm thinking that might be directed at me. We didn't. We had those gadflies. They were there talking one-on-one to our volunteers. We were writing down everything they said just as much as we were writing down everything that everyone else said, which is why our sort of transcribed public input, which is what we provided to our decision makers when they were looking at the vision, it had the full spectrum of thoughts. The other thing that I think was critical is our volunteers were not necessarily, we're regional, and our volunteers were not necessarily known to the folks that they were talking to. That helped because the gadflies already have a relationship with the planning staff, for example, in their county or their municipality, but they were talking to someone who hadn't heard it before. And that made it sort of more credible for everybody. And our volunteers just understood that, whatever it was, just make sure you understand it, write it down. They'll see it on the website the next day.
I'll add one thing.
Okay, sure.
I think that was a softball you threw right at me. You really need a trunk monkey for that, so I just want to make sure you saw it. That's all.
We have verbal vomit teams. When we prepare for our public meetings, we have designated people that are purposeful. As soon as you come in the door, they know who these people are, and you can tell if they come in with a scowl on your face, you're getting a verbal vomit team member that's going to intercept you. And the whole point is to get them to verbally vomit on you in a private setting as soon as they get into the meeting, so that they get their voice heard and they kind of get it all out. And hopefully that will relieve them. And so then once they get to the more public engagement part of the meeting, their comments may be more tempered. We still want them to engage, but you don't want them to necessarily dominate the meeting because they came there to say one specific thing. So we encourage them to say that to us as soon as they enter the door, and that has worked very effectively. And people like being called part of the verbal vomit team, so that makes it fun too.
An interesting thing about social media is the generational aspects of it. My 92-year-old mom can't even use a personal computer, and then the baby boomers like me have a hard time with the world of social media, and then my kids are at home with it. I don't even know where my grandkids are going to be. It's scary. But how do you deal with that whole generational thing in relation to social media?
You're the fastest growing portion of social media users. So more and more people in the baby boomer generation are getting onto social media. It's a great way to connect with the grandkids, with others. I think what we see is that people who are, this is new to them, that they will stick to one of these social media sources rather than being really fluid, which you might see among younger generations. I was in a great meeting a few days ago, and one of the speakers said that we're all digital immigrants. And we're all learning in different ways. And so we have to recognize that none of us are digital natives, that we're all immigrants. And so how do we adopt and manage our communication strategies to reach out to people who may be at different phases of integration with their digital media? So what I would say is that social media is just one aspect of any campaign to try to reach out, educate, engage. So you want to have the Legos, you want to have the scientists, you want to have all of this mix of activities happening to engage with the public, but social media is certainly an important part of that.
Piggybacking off of the question about social media, I work in the public sector, and I find that as the designated Twitter keeper, I don't mess with Facebook. I don't like Facebook. I don't trust Facebook. That's another story. But the problem I have is this. My bosses and others within our city organization don't seem to understand that the voice used in social media is a different one than we use on stodgy press releases and ads in the newspaper and things like this. So my question to all of you is this: how do you find that alternative voice and project a little bit lighter countenance about your organization, be it regional, be it a city, whatever it may be, still holding true to the message, but at the same time, like I say, making it light and identifying with people who use those tools?
Okay, great. I'll take this one.
That's the answer.
Okay, perfect.
I think baby steps, because it's not going to happen overnight. We have a similar experience in our agency, and we just slowly joined. Even though the agency itself is very technologically advanced, we're not social media friendly yet. We're getting there, and I think the key is baby steps, because eventually, resistance is futile. They'll be assimilated eventually. It just need to be patient.
So I think, as Sean said, it's really important that we translate our message to the layperson. And so you use that in the context of scientist to politician, but the same thing goes for social media, that we wouldn't release a press release that used planners jargon in a really technical way, that you have to understand the medium. And if we look at why Groupon is so successful, it's not because they offer you half price on your pedicure. It's because they have funny messages, and you're tempted to open it because you know you're going to be entertained. And so understanding that we're looking for entertainment value as well as education when we're accessing things through certain types of social media, we need to understand that. And so helping our politicians, our leaders, and others understand this from a communication perspective and how we're communicating through different outlets. And I think it takes a lot of training and expertise, because where do you draw that line between, oh, this is funny, versus, wow, you've been really offensive with the way that you've structured your comment. So, I posted this little Twitter note about, being a superhero in your underwear. That's probably pushing the line a little farther than your public organization is willing to go. But you could probably find some fun ways. For example, that YouTube video that showed people bumping into obstacles. Well, that's an example of something that could be fun. It's not offensive, and it gets the message across that we need better enforcement of our policies, because we've put the infrastructure in for bike lanes. Now we need to make sure people people can use them, for example. So I don't have something easy, but I need a social media guide, facilitator's guide of how to do this, and I think that's something that would really help us out.
You know, one thing I would add is that it's also, you need to help to educate your planning directors that it's not just about getting a specific message about a certain public meeting out. You also have to market your agency. I mean, even if it's a public agency, believe it or not, you need to market your public agency. People need to know who you are and what you do and appreciate you. And I'm kind of blessed where I work that I have an executive director that understands marketing. There are articles and written out there about the importance of marketing your agency. Just like APA is getting better at marketing themselves as an organization, you need to market your planning commission or your planning department. And Twitter and Facebook is a way to do that. So it's not just about getting out the message of the public meeting, but also bringing attention to your organization. And it's about educating your planning directors and the importance of that.
Come on down. I feel like you're on The Price is Right. All right. I think we might have some Christmas hard candy hidden somewhere.
And some generic soft drink. Can I just ask a follow-up question to that? I'm from Australia. My apologies for the accent. One of the questions that we often get is more senior people in our organisations suggesting that it's not appropriate to be marketing ourselves or to be marketing what we do. And there's a change in mentality for me in doing that through social media. You do need to be able to do that and to share. How do you persuade your directors to allow that change of focus?
You have to educate them. Again, the best way I could think of is to find the articles out there from the academics and the practitioners who have written about the importance of this. You know, agencies, especially with the economy, different agencies have struggled. There's been layoffs, and the you know, the county administrators and such, they look at, you know, where do I cut? Well, you know, nobody cares about the planning department. But if people care about the planning department, you get support from the public, and you get the public crying out when there are cuts, and it happens. In my area, the public has cried out when certain individuals or departments are cut, and they don't want them cut. It's an education for your director to understand that there are benefits to having support in the community for your organization and promoting yourself.
For me, I don't like to think of it as marketing, because that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach where people are at. There would be no problem with us going to a neighborhood meeting, right, to reach out. Well, you know what? Not very many people are going to be at that neighborhood meeting. So where are we going to find the people? And what is the communication mechanism by which those people want to be engaged? And that's really what we're trying to do, is expand the reach of planning to allow us to interact, engage, and find out more about what they want from our communities. Oh, come on, there's got to be one more person with a burning question that you have to have answered today. Nothing. All right, come on down. Okay, great.
And it's maybe a somewhat silly question, but, or maybe it's really obvious, but getting the box manufacturer to give you boxes and then having the children draw on the outside of the boxes, did you play into the whole outside of the box thinking with the constituents at your meetings?
Well, I think that's a very good question. It was an unusual donation, and it was not my idea, but one of our volunteers came up with the idea to bring them to schools and get the kids to draw on them. But they had this weird sort of impact because they're adorable and they're funny, and when you're talking about 50 years, people have a really hard time getting their heads around that. What do they think? They think, you know, if they're my generation, they think the Jetsons or something. These kids, the grown-ups were thinking robots, but the kids drew robots. So that somehow was freeing or something. It allowed them to think more like kids, or think at least with a more open mind, which is something that you need to do for visioning. So they ended up, we got a ton of mileage, sort of inadvertently, out of this donation and these kids who are just wonderfully creative.
Cool, thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for spending time with us today. We will pick up your little surveys that you have, so if you just want to leave them on the end chair as you leave today. I will let you know there is another fast, funny, and passionate session with a whole new slew of speakers later in the conference, so if you want more entertainment while you're here, then feel free to attend that session, and we'd like to thank you all very much.